Welcome design students. In this video I'm going to show you some techniques you can use to create a holiday gnome like this one. Now, I'm not going to show you exactly how to do it, but I'm going to show you some different things you can use and different methods you can use to create one of your very own. So let's get started. A quick image search on Google will yield a whole bunch of different types of holiday type gnomes, and if you see one you like, simply click it and then you can take a screenshot of the image here, which is probably the easiest thing to do. You can use the snipping tool, or on a Mac you can do Command-Shift-4 and just take a screenshot and then save that image to your Scene Assets Images folder. And then once in 3D Max, you're going to want to create a plane in the front viewport, and I always like to zero out the length and width segments, because when you're working with edged faces turned on, they'll distract you. They'll be on the background image and they'll distract you. So let's take this in the top viewport and move it away from the center here. And then I'm going to zero out the X, I meant to say, so that it's centered this way. And then I'm going to change this view from wireframe to default shading and turn off the grid by pushing G on the keyboard. Now we need to make a material for this, and just drag off the base color node, general bitmap, and select the reference image that you chose, and then apply it to the plane. And then I usually like to turn the grid back on and put the image so that the feet are generally on the ground. Now we can close the material editor, and then we need to freeze this plane so we don't move it by accident. So to do that, we need to right click, bring up Object Properties, and turn off Show Frozen in Gray right here, and click OK. And now we can freeze that easily so that we can't move it. Now this particular gnome has a body. I don't even think he has a head, and he has arms and little feet. So what I usually like to do in this case is start with a box and just create a box. It doesn't really matter how big it is at this point, and sort of center it a little bit. And then I like to go to the Modify tab and pull down the list, and I like to use a modifier called Spherify. And then when we go back down to the box level and add segments, you'll see something taking place. We suddenly have some geometry. Let me turn on edge faces in the perspective view. And I usually like to just continue adding geometry until I get the right geometry that I need. And I think 4 and 4 and 4 is going to work for me, because this right here can become the arms on either side. And I'm not really worried about the feet. So now it would be very helpful to be able to see the image through the geometry. So what I like to do here is make a material for the geometry that I'm working with. And it can be whatever color you want it to be. Sorry, I don't need to do that. And it doesn't need to be shiny. And the reason I like to do this is because I can change the transparency as much or as little as I want this way, and I retain the color. So what I need to do now is shape this to conform to the body. Now the easiest way to do that is to use an FFD modifier. I'm going to use a 3x3, open up and select control points, and then I'm going to start shaping this thing so that it looks more like the gnome's body. Now I have to make some assumptions about what it's going to look like from the side. I don't think it's going to be as fat like that from the side, so I'm going to pull that in. Actually, I'm going to pull that in on the back here so that he has kind of a little belly sticking out. I'm going to grab this one and pull that out a little bit more and pull it down. So you can see very quickly that we can get a very nice sort of a body shape here. Now remember, he doesn't have a head. So I'm going to pull this up a little bit more so that it goes up inside the hat. And his arms are going to come out of right here, which is about where they are on the rest of it. So now that I have this done, I think I'm just going to right click and convert to an editable poly, so that now I can use symmetry if I want. So these are going to be the arms. So I'm going to hold down Shift and extrude these out once, and then extrude them down one more time. And then I'm going to scale them down a lot. Actually, accidentally turned my view here. And then I'm going to rotate them so that they point downward. And then I'm going to move them so that I have a little arm going down here. And this is going to take a little shaping, so I'm going to grab these vertices here and pull that down and take the armpit here. Got to figure out what's going on here. Take this and pull this one down. Now, normally what we would do in this case is we would create the character in a T-pose and then put bones in him and pose it, but we're not going to go to that much trouble with this. One thing you really should do, though, is you should spend some time getting the shape right before you start extruding down too much. So I'm going to go to the material editor here and bring the transparency down to 0 so I can actually see the geometry. And I need to round this out. Okay, so now that I've got that, I'm going to select these again, go back to the front view, excuse me, and pull these down one more time, and then one more time again. And I'm going to go down in my settings here and find NURMS smoothing, and I'm going to turn that on and see what that looks like. That's not bad. We're going to need a hand, a little ball here thing on the end, and we're going to make that in the next video. Before we leave this one, I'm going to go to polygon mode, select half of my geometry, hit delete, then I'm going to go back to the top level and put a symmetry modifier on it. And change the direction, and click flip if it disappears, and actually that was interesting. Then I need to probably work on this shape just a little bit and pull his shoulders up a little bit more. I can turn on show end result to get a better idea. So that's pretty good. Continue tweaking this until you get it to look right. But when we come back in the next video, I'll show you how to make some little hands, and then we'll make the nose and the feet. And I'll see you then.